you're going to hear about tonight, the Chesapeake experience, is an example of learning experiences that teachers design that contribute to student engagement. And you're going to hear specifically about the work of fifth grade teachers and students with the Chesapeake experience. And it's an integrated project that provides students with hands-on experiences, highlighting the importance of the Bay. And the learning experiences integrated science, math, and language arts. And it included students kayaking, crabbing, participating in interactive math activity, and collecting live data that they used in their classroom following the field experience at the Chesapeake Bay. And they also shared their findings with various groups in the community in the hopes of making some changes relating to the Chesapeake Bay. So I'd like to introduce Paula Sasson, Principal of Coventry Elementary School, who will then introduce other presenters.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Williams, Mrs. Haywood, and members of the board. I am the proud and very lucky principal of Coventry Elementary School who gets to present to you two of our wonderful fifth grade teachers, Mrs. Robin Clifford and Miss Beth Bambini, along with two of our current fifth grade students and one former student. You will see this evening how our teachers have created a real-life, authentic, and engaging opportunity that integrates reading, writing, math, and science for all of our fifth grade students. The Chesapeake Bay experience brings our students right into local waterways and gives them the opportunity to explore the water, collect current data, and make an impact by sharing their findings with local and national politicians, friends, relatives, and neighbors in an effort to save the Bay, and also learn ways they can enrich their environment and the community at large.
Now, how do I get the pictures? Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm Robin Clifford, and thank you for asking us to come and tell you about our project. It first got started because last June I took a class. It was called Experiencing the Chesapeake Bay Ecosystem. It was taught by Jill Beery and Lee Schuster of Chesapeake Experience, and I got to do a lot of cool activities. Like here you can see is a picture of me on beach seining with another teacher from York High School. And one day we got to go and work with oysters. We went to an oyster farm, and we went to the Virginia Institute of Marine Science and worked with oysters. Another day we got to we touched and held little living organisms that lived in the oyster reef, and we classified them. And the whole time I was doing this, I'm like saying, I have to do this with my kids because when we classify living organisms, we're usually classifying pictures of things. And I said, this is so cool to be able to hold and touch them and do this. So I want to do that with my kids. But I'd have to say, the thing that impacted me most was when I saw an amazing filtering demonstration that showed the capabilities of oysters. Now, I had always read that oysters are filters, they clean the bay, they clean the water. Yeah, I know what they do, but I really didn't until I saw it. To me, it was really, really amazing. So I said, I have to get my kids to be able to see this. So I wrote a grant and was awarded funding from the York Foundation for Public Education to have Chesapeake Experience come and bring oysters to our classroom. And that's just what they did. In November, they came to our classrooms, all the fifth grade classrooms, and everyone in Coventry was so excited that day that oysters were coming. They came, and we started out class by designing an experiment. Well, the students designed the experiment, and here you can see we have 2 tanks of water, and the students came up with the constants for the experiment. They said that we had to have the same tanks. You can see we have the same tanks, we have the same size tanks, same type of tanks, same amount of water, and the same clarity of water. The only thing that's different is the oysters, and that's the independent variable. The one with oysters and one without. By the end of class, you can see the one with the oysters was much cleaner than the other. This is what amazed me when I saw it, and it's very, very powerful visual. So while this was going on, our students were doing the classification activity that I got to do that I thought was so cool. Habitat cubes were previously in the York River that morning, and Chesapeake Experience brought them to our classroom. So I'd like to introduce you to one of our fifth grade students this year, Caroline Pettit, and she's going to tell you about this activity.
My name is Caroline Pettit, and I'm here to explain how we classified organisms in the middle of oysters. First, our class was divided into groups. Each group received a tub full of filthy and slimy oysters. The adults told us to find some living organisms in the oysters. I was expecting them to lend us some tools, but we had to use our hands. At first, I was disgusted by the idea of using them. I started just by simply touching the oysters, but they didn't feel as wet and gross as they seemed. My group found many fish and crabs swimming around. When we found a creature in, on, or around the many oysters, we had to use a very helpful tool called a dichotomist. A dichotomist is a key that helps you classify animals or objects, and in this case, we're classifying animals. When we finally found what the creature was, we'd put it in a cup and have a label put on it. We would then put it on a counter where we held a museum. When the whole class thought they found all the living creatures, we would walk down the museum and see all the living things. I was surprised by how many creatures depended on the oysters. This was a great experience for me because I learned that oysters have a big role to play in the Chesapeake Bay and other places. They give food and shelter to living organisms, and they filter our water. They also give food to us. I didn't know that such a small sea creature can do such a big job.
Thank you, Caroline. Then the next day, we did a children's engineering project as a follow-up to the oysters filtering. And I would like to introduce you to another one of our fifth grade students to tell you about this. His name is Elijah Johnson.
Hi, my name is Elijah, and I'm going to talk about the filter experiment we did at school. Mrs. Clifford told our class that we were going to be judged on how clear the water was and how long it took to filter the water. We were given $50 to spend on material. She showed us a list of supplies and how much they cost. It was fun working with my partner about how cheap it was and how we're going to do it. And we were trying to make the cheapest but best. After we were done, this is the filter we made. And also, these are some of my classmates' filters. When we were done, we were to put the filters behind a number, and behind the filters were dirty glass jars that were going to be poured into the filters to see how effective it was. When everyone was done, Mrs. Clifford invited two parents, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, to come into the classroom and judge how good the filters were. After they were done, I found out that my filter won second place. I learned that when making a filter, you should not use sponges, and also that it's not really good to make the paper towels on the filter flat or the water will fall off. I love this experiment because I learned how fun it was. It was super fun, and I learned learned all the stuff about the filter and how you should make it, and about the oyster experiment Caroline talked about. And also, it was fun debating with my partners and everybody else about who had the best jar.
Okay. Thank you, Elijah. Now, the second part of our project is a fantastic field experience. This came about 3 years ago when I took a class on the Eastern Shore. It was called Coastal Bay Ecology. It was taught in partnership with Chesapeake Experience and the University of Virginia. And 3 years ago, I had not taught science before, so I thought, I knew I was going to teach it in the fall of 2010. I thought that by taking this class, it would be a great way for me to get started thinking about science and science concepts. And it was a great class. I did so many cool things, and I got to go kayaking for the first time. I had never been. But something really important that I learned was that there's grant opportunities available for projects and experiences that promote the health of the bay. So I wrote a grant and was awarded funding. This one's from the Chesapeake Bay Restoration Fund to take all of our fifth grade classes on this action-packed, very educational, life-changing field experience. And we've done it for the past 2 years. We've been fortunate enough, again, this year to be awarded funding from the Chesapeake Bay Restoration Fund. And so we're going to take Caroline and Elijah and all our other fifth graders next month on this field experience. We do it in the Pocosin River at the end of Tab Mill. We take one class a day, and we split the class into two groups. One class goes kayaking, and the other class, they do water quality data analysis, they go crabbing, and they do an interactive map activity. And then after an hour and a half, then the groups switch. So Caroline and Elijah haven't gone on this trip yet, so we have invited Abby Overbay, who is currently a 6th grader at Tab Middle School, to come and tell you about her field experience from last year.
Hello, my name is Abby Overbay. First thing we did when we got there was Miss Jill showed us how to hold the paddle and kayak in the Pocosin River. When she set us off in the water, we saw many different plants and animals like osprey, herons, egrets, snails, oysters, and so on. The tides also affected the kayaking. It was a lot easier going out of the water than in. When we were done kayaking, we did land-based activities. One of these activities was titled, Where in the Watershed? We saw and studied a large map and hands-on activities to identify the Chesapeake Bay and its tributaries. It was interesting to learn how pollution affects the health of the bay and its surrounding areas. We also took water samples to record water temperatures. We used a turbidity tube and a Secchi disc to measure the clarity of the water. The Secchi disc is used by lowering down the disc to the point that you can't see the difference between the white and the black anymore. This is used to measure the depth of the clarity. We also used an instrument called the refractometer. So how you use this is you put a drop of water on this screen and you look through and to find the salinity of the water. After this, we put chicken on a string to crab. So first, we had to lower the string down into the water and wait a long time for them to finally catch the crab. But when you saw the little string start to wiggle, we had to pull it up slow, and an adult had to come by with the net to catch it before it fell back into the water. Then the adults had to put the crabs in an ice cooler. We also measured the width of the crabs, then determined if they were males or females. We recorded this information for further study. But don't worry, after the data collection is complete, the crabs were put back safely into the water. This whole kayaking, crabbing, and learning about the bay really got me thinking about how important the Chesapeake Bay is to the earth. This was a great learning experience for me and the whole 5th grade. I hope this field trip continues.
Our inquiries concluded with follow-up activities in the classroom. As the 5 5th grade classes, we all cooperated with Mrs. Clifford. The first activity that we did, we read a book called The Day They Left the Bay by Mick Blackstone. In the story, the animals leave the bay because of the polluted waters. A young boy rallies the community together to clean the bay in hopes of bringing back the animals. After hearing the story, the students discuss the impact humans have on the bay and the things they can do to protect the bay. The story invites discussion and expands beyond the classroom. As you see on the slide here, it's Help Wanted, Restore the Health of the Bay. One of the websites, Grasses for Masses, Mrs. Clifford introduced that to our students. It enlightened the children to the part that some children went back, told their parents about it, and it was written up in the newspaper how they participated with Grasses for Masses. Another thing is the oyster restoration. They can become active in that. And where we took action was at the bottom, we wrote a letter to our local government officials to persuade him or her to continue efforts to clean the bay. Our students wrote these letters in hopes of receiving information back. And also, we did get information back. We got a letter back from Barack Obama about how he liked how we participated in cleaning the bay. After that, we took the data that the children collected. They, in addition to writing letters, the students used their data for land-based activities to make graphs, study mean, median, mode, and the bay's blue crab population. In conclusion, our hopes as educators are that our students become lifelong supporters of their local community. One person can make a difference. Our fifth graders have transformed into teachers, activists, and patrons of Saving the Bay. Thank you.
That was fantastic, and it's great to see the enthusiasm and energy that the students have about this. Don't go away yet. I want to give the board members a chance to ask questions, but who's going to be a marine biologist or marine scientist or something along that way? Anybody yet? Know what you want to do when you grow up? Elijah, what?
When I grow up, I wanted to be either an environmental scientist or a musical engineer.
Okay, fantastic. Use the music to soothe the water. Okay, anybody else, any comments or questions?
That was just a fantastic,
Yeah.
just, you're having fun and the kids are learning and they're having a ball. I definitely want to know the date of y'all's next trip, because I like to meet them out and meet y'all out there just to watch and.
We
'cause
have
it's-
5 different dates.
Yeah, just maybe find out what those dates are.
Yeah.
Because I think that just seeing the enthusiasm with the 3 students we had here, but I can imagine 5 classes, Coventry, out there, the teachers, and of course the people that are helping y'all along the way. They walk away just with just all kinds of things bouncing around in their head of how much they learned that day and throughout the entire process in the classroom. So very well done.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations, and my hat's off to you for taking the initiative to get the grant and to excite these kids. This is something that they will always remember. When they think back about their time in school, this is going to be something that they'll never forget, and I know it has really given them an excitement for marine science, and congratulations, and a job well done.
Go ahead.
No, I was just, it's fantastic. I mean, I was just drawn into it, and I can only imagine how they were. But when I saw the kayaks, and Mr. Mefford, if you and I went along, we'd probably be the first ones to turn over. Did anybody turn over a kayak?
I was going to try to see if Robbie could let me use his those little ski doos.
Oh,
They have life jackets.
But thank you for all you did with your
I don't know if you
students
all
and the
can go
grant
or
writing.
It's just amazing how you you can sit in class and talk about this all day long, but one trip, just brings it really brings it home. I was going to offer, by the way, my house is right there on that river, and I have a pier there, and I'll be glad for a reduced fee, I'll have some lemonade for you, okay? So I'll look out for you. You just let me know. 2 questions. One, just real quick, so your take home from this, how can we all do our part to protect the bay? Just give me a couple things we can do to protect the oysters, I should say. Anybody, shout it out. I'm like putting them on the spot.
Well, you should stop throwing trash and stuff on the ground because the rain or something else might knock it into the bay, and it can hurt the oysters and all the other animals that live in there.
Excellent. It's something we can all do, for sure. And the last one, put you on the spot. How can you tell the difference between a male and a female crab? No.
There's like a design on their belly or something like that. It's kind of cool. And does the male, it has like a,
It's thinner.
yeah,
And the female's thicker.
yeah. And then the males call a Jimmy, and then females call a Sally.
Very good. Thank you.
And you all, I'd also like to add a few things, and there's so many different takeaways from there, but just from the presentation and things that stand out. One of my takeaways is that when you touch slimy oysters, you're going to be more likely to learn. And what I mean by that is, seriously, rather than just looking at a photograph of an oyster or something else, working with a slimy oyster, you're going to be more likely then to have a hook to remember things relating to oysters. Another thing that struck me is your focus as teachers on big ideas and important content for students to learn. In this case, the impact we have on our environment, but then also the connection between different different animals or organisms. And so obviously those are some big ideas, and then there's a ton of other content that kids can hang on that very important key themes. Another thing that struck me is how the product focus for students contributed to students being engaged. So the focus on making something, that application of knowledge is going to make you all more likely to remember this information years from now. So that's one thing that struck me. Also impressed with the teachers giving you all the opportunity to say, hey, we're going to trust that you can make a difference with what you're learning, and give you the opportunity to make a difference in the world relating to the content that you're learning about. So great, and thank you for sharing about slimy oysters and more tonight. So.